Annyeonghaseyo, this is meowmurai. Let's continue our game of Despera Drops, running on Nintendo Switch 2.
真実を見つけに行くよ。
準備ならできている。
これで OK?
We reconvened after traveling all the way to Constance, Germany. The others had a short discussion and chose this hotel as our hideout. This stunning hotel, apparently a resort, had a beautiful interior. However, as I entered our chic suite, I stood motionlessly in silence. Come on, I need to thank everyone for saving me. That was what I wanted to do, but for some reason the words wouldn't make it past my throat. I made my decision to turn myself into Europool. It was supposed to buy everyone time to escape, and I would give up on this futile running. But in the end, I'd been kidnapped and my comrades had to come rescue me. Hamiel turned on the TV to break the oppressive silence for us all. But the murmur of the mundane program was almost jarring, and the uncomfortable quiet only grew more prominent. Gib came to me with a notepad in hand.
ではいくつか確認しておきたいんだが、さらわれている間に何か分かったことはあるか？妙な連中のことだ。私も知っておきたい。
Gib asked question after question like an officer doing an interrogation. I swallowed my nervousness and answered dutifully. Alright, obviously we're choosing Sally on this one. Sally, who'd been stuffing her mouth full with cake until moments ago, stood up. She did a big stretch as she walked over to the windows. She was admiring the scenery outside. As I approached her, there were tourists and vacationers frolicking on Lake Constance shore, happy and carefree.
湖に入ったら気持ちいいだろうね。
I muttered my thoughts out loud. That made Sally lean over from beside me and catch my gaze.
ねえ、お姉ちゃん、一緒に遊びに行こうよ。でも勝手に出たら。さっきパパさんに確認取っといたから大丈夫。日が沈む前に帰ればいいって言ってたよ。
Sally looked up at me with puppy dog eyes. If Gib had deemed it acceptable, maybe going out for a bit wouldn't hurt. Though hesitant, I nodded. Germany, Constance, July 26, 2028, 1944, Wednesday. Pier. When we came out onto the pier, the pleasant lakeside breeze welcomed us. The two of us walked across the pier, bustling with tourists. Sally's eyes lit up like the sun when she spotted Japanese tourists every now and then.
見た見た？今の子、ジャパンブランドのバッグ持ってた。え？そうなの？うん、ロリータファッションで有名なブランドだよ。サリーも欲しかったやつ。
Seeing Sally being as cheerful as usual, I found a smile curling my lips.
サリー、ああいうお洋服が本当に好きなんだね。どうして好きになったの？お仕事の依頼でたまたま原宿の監視カメラをハッキングしてた時に知ったんだ。
Oh, it was during her hacking work.
すっごく可愛くてサリー大はしゃぎだったんだよ。ずーっと目が釘付けになっちゃって。いいなあ、イタリアじゃ直営店全然ないんだもん。やっぱ本場の路面店行ってみたいな。いつか行けたら案内してくれる？
Sally's innocent and pure eyes gazed at me. Would that one day ever arrive? The moment that sad thought appeared, I chased it away. Of course I will. Well, here.
とりあえず記録しておけ。
これでいいか？
もちろん案内するよ。やった！原宿に裏原でしょ？それに大阪にもあるんだっけ？そこも行ってみたい。大阪はちょっと遠いかもしれないかな。あ、そうなんだ。だったら東京と横浜。横浜にも行きたいの？
It was a large city, but as far as I knew, it wasn't a city that had many things of interest to Sally.
もちろんだよ。だってお姉ちゃんが暮らしてた町でしょ。サリー行ってみたいな。覚えててくれたんだ。当たり前じゃん。いつかお姉ちゃんが住んでた町をサリーに案内してね。
We engaged in such idle chatter as we walked until Sally let out a delighted gasp.
見て見て、ここ咲くない。気持ちいい。
She was reaching down at the lake from a part of the pier that didn't have a railing. The water sparkled as it reflected the summer sunlight.
あんまりはしゃぐと落ちるよ。大丈夫。ちゃんと気をつけるもん。もうちょっとで届きそうなんだよ。
That was what she claimed, but she looked like she'd tumble right in if she leaned forward any further.
無理だよ。落っこちちゃうから。ああ、残念。こうやって桟橋から水に触るの好きだったのにな。子供の頃、家族旅行で行った時もサリーだけずっと桟橋から離れなかったんだよ。
Giggling, Sally told me a nostalgic story. Whenever summer arrived, her family would visit a lake retreat. She loved swimming, and every year her mom would gift her a new swimsuit. Sally looked so happy when she talked about her family. I felt pained that she'd ended up in this situation, and more than a little guilty.
そっか、仲がいい家族なんだね。きっとサリーのことを心配してるね。どうだろう。最近はサリー一人暮らししてたから会えてないし。
Living alone? The way she spoke about them, I assumed she had been living with her family up until she was arrested.
うん。お兄ちゃんが死んじゃってから家族がみんなバラバラになっちゃったんだ。
Sally shared that nonchalantly while smiling. Because of that, it took a while for the meaning of her words to sink in. Wait, her brother died?
お兄ちゃんが死んでからママたちなんか変になっちゃってさ。それで旅行も行けなくなっちゃった。でも楽しかったな。子供の頃に行ったコモ湖知ってる？いろんな映画の撮影現場になってるんだ。それでパパがすごいはしゃいでて。
I'm beginning to see what may be her problem.
パパが写真撮ってる間にサリーうっかり水に落ちちゃったんだよね。それでお兄ちゃんが助け。
Slowly, Sally trailed off. She was staring at the lake in a stupor.
サリー？
Her eyes were wide with fear. Concerned about her strange reaction, I placed my hand on hers.
サリー！
I caught a glimpse of something that looked like her memory of drowning. Sally's hand trembled uncontrollably. She stared into the distance in a daze. Her throat wheezed as she sucked in a sharp breath.
誰？あれは助けた。違う。なんで？
Sally mumbled something, sounding confused. Frowning, she reached out her hand and scratched at her throat. Something definitely wasn't right. I stroked her back to try to calm her down.
サリー、大丈夫？違う。あれは誰？
Without warning, Sally jumped to her feet and ran off.
サリー？
I chased after her. We had run quite far from the pier by the time I caught up to her.
サリー！
When I clasped her hand once more, fright and grief came through, and for some reason a boiling rage. Why rage? My thoughts were interrupted by Sally practically crumbling to the ground and landing on her hands. Beads of sweat rolled down her forehead.
サリー、大丈夫？
Oh, do all the characters have panic attacks? Wanting to help her rest, I stroked her back again. Sally couldn't stand up even after resting. I sat down beside a tree and gestured at her to lie down.
サリー、大丈夫だからね。
I guided her head onto my lap before slowly combing through her hair to help her calm her breathing. She panted erratically for some time, but seemed to calm down as I kept stroking her. Eventually, her panic subsided and her breathing became peaceful.
ありがとう、お姉ちゃん。もう苦しくない？うん。でも、もうちょっとこうしていたいな。
She pressed her cheek against my lap and whispered that request.
お姉ちゃんと一緒にいると落ち着くね。
She sounded on the verge of tears. Having a flashback to how she almost drowned must have taken everything out of her. Quietly, I kept stroking her hair, and she shifted as if snuggling up to me.
ねえ、お姉ちゃんの話が聞きたいな。私の話？うん。子供の頃、どんな女の子だったのかなって。お姉ちゃんの思い出話が聞きたい。
Sally badgered me for stories about my childhood as if to chase away her own scary memories. So I began speaking, taking care to sound casual.
と言っても、普通の子供だったと思う。少し怖がりで。
I indulged her questions and talked about my life in Japan. I went from a story about a vacation home I'd visited with my father to my memories of the sports days in school. I even talked about the shops I'd liked. I told her about how there was a harbor in Yokohama and how it was stunning in the evening, about cafes and omurais, about when I'd been the class president. Sally listened to my trifling stories with a smile on her face.
やっぱりお姉ちゃんって昔からいい子だったんだね。全然違うや。
Her voice was filled with self-derision. Sally shook her head and clutched the hem of my skirt tightly.
あのさ、お姉ちゃんサリーのこと守らなきゃって思ってるでしょ？うん。なんかお姉ちゃんって呼ばれてるからつい。でもさ、サリーはハッカーなんだよ。ハミーくん風に言えばクラッカーだっけ。サリーはれっきとした犯罪者なんだよ。
Her tone was different from usual. It was like she was chiding me. She continued solemnly with full self-awareness of her own sins.
お姉ちゃんは無実だけど、サリーは無実じゃない。それを忘れちゃダメだよ。サリー。
Until this moment, she'd never acknowledged her own crimes. She hacked readily, always arguing that it wasn't a bad thing. But now...
だから、お姉ちゃんは守られてて、守るのはサリーの役目なんだからさ。無実の一般人なんだから。サリーが必ず守るから。もう勝手にどっか行って。
She mumbled in a drowsy voice and closed her eyes. Before long, there was the sound of steady breathing on my lap.
サリー？無実の一般人なんだから。サリーが必ず守るから。もう勝手にどっか行っちゃダメだよ。
I think she's asleep. Sally's hand refused to let go of my skirt, as if declaring that she wanted to stay here as long as she could. Sally says she'll protect me, huh? That's not right. I'm the one who has to protect her. I turned over Sally's words in my head. She was a criminal. That much was true, but it wasn't a valid reason to stop protecting her, too. Though I wished to defend her, I didn't know what I could do. If only I had enough power to shield Sally from all dangers. If only I were stronger. If I had the strength to run away to the end of time together with her, I wouldn't feel so tormented. For now, I continued to stroke her head until the sunset. Germany, Constance, July 26, 2028, 22:03, Wednesday, Resort Hotel. After that, I returned to the hotel, had a shower, made my way to the bedroom, and sat down on the bed. Sally had gone off to the shower right after me. All alone, I absently thought back on the conversations I had today. What were we going to do from now on? That was a question no one had touched. Everyone was careful and considerate so that they wouldn't shatter the tiny, fragile day of peace we had gently put together, which was why I hadn't broached the subject either. Deciding that we could have a good discussion tomorrow, I tucked myself into bed. That was when my phone rang like an ominous omen.
Yeah, Joe-chan. 元気だったかい?
When I accepted the call, the voice that flowed out belonged to the man I'd met again in Altdorf.
カルロスさんですか。
ああ、そうだとも。その様子だと無事に逃げてこられたみたいだな。
Escape. That word implied he knew my situation. My breathing hitched.
どういうことですか。
おや、聞いてないのか？これでもジャーナリストの端くれだからね。実はジョーちゃんの居場所を探す手伝いをしたんだよ。
Okay, this all sounds familiar. That's right, this is where everybody's gone.
だからお姉ちゃんは守られてて、守るのはサリーの役目なんだからさ。
My memory played back. Those words, those eyes. Had they already decided to infiltrate the castle then? To put an end to everything? But they were oblivious to how ruthless Chancellor's heart was. Just the thought of it made a chill run down my spine. If they were really there, I ached to save them. But what could I even do? I wanted to rush out of the room and sprint all the way there, but it was just yesterday that I promised not to run into danger and sacrifice myself anymore. Yet if anyone gets captured by Chancellor, they will... A man with such cold-hearted emotions would certainly murder those he deemed a hindrance without batting an eye, just like how he'd killed Mr. Hartfield. Everyone could be killed in cold blood. If that came to pass, I would never be able to forgive myself for not acting now. I tried calling him again, but Carlos didn't answer. One of the others might have replied to me. I opened up my messages. The name at the top made me pause. Rebecca Rosso. While I'd been held in captivity at the castle, I received several worried texts from her. Oh, okay, so this is all repeat. We gotta go rescue the rescuers. That's right, Bishop gave us the map. It was Sally. We were bound for Switzerland once again, making a beeline for Lugano. Since we'd managed to escape before the arrival of the police, there were no pursuers on our trail. We traveled peacefully without much traffic. Fruit punch, oh boy. After some time on the road, we decided to take a break. The moment she climbed off the bike, Sally ran as fast as her legs could carry her to the middle of a meadow before flopping down onto her back.
あー疲れた。お姉ちゃんも早く早く。
At Sally's insistence, I laid down next to her in the grass. The azure sky was so peaceful that it was jarring, the bright color painful to look at.
はあ、かっこよくお姉ちゃんのところに戻るつもりだったのにな。結局お姉ちゃんに助けられちゃった。
Puffing out her cheeks, Sally flailed her arms in a fake tantrum. She was the same as ever. It was as if she'd forgotten everything up until this moment. But the reality was that she'd been captured and almost tortured. There were even scrapes on her arms. It was hard to pretend nothing had happened.
私はサリーが無事でよかったと思ってるよ。本当に無事でよかった。
I sat up and looked at Sally. She mirrored me, sitting up herself and looking back with an innocent gaze. I voiced the question on my mind.
ねえサリー、どうしてあの城に忍び込んだの？
The agents in the castle mentioned that my comrades had made an attempt on Chancellor's life, but Sally didn't have any motive to do that. Oh, excuse me. That's why I asked her up front. The corners of her eyes softened as she smiled.
なんでだと思う？ミカのためって言ったら怒る？
Oh, thank you. I love to sneeze during my streams. Her stunning amethyst eyes held a curious glint as she regarded me.
それは。
I felt torn. A part of me wanted to yell at her for putting herself in danger, while the other wanted to thank her. Seeing me at a loss, Sally chuckled before reaching out to me, her fingers gently caressing my cheek.
お姉ちゃんはさ、あの人たちさえいなければ無実になれるから。だから、なくしちゃいたかったんだ。お姉ちゃんが追われる理由そのものを。
I swallowed the question of how. I could never ask her. After all, I might have thought the exact same thing if our positions had been reversed. Suddenly, Sally moved forward until she was hovering over me. Her body completely blocked out the sun.
サリーは誰が一番大切なのか順位をつけただけだよ。ただそれだけ。それにサリーは知りたかったんだ。あの人たちがどうして人を殺したのか。それがサリーがずっと探している人に関係しているかもしれなかったから。
The person she's been searching for? Since she had her back against the light, I couldn't make out Sally's expression clearly. Sally leaned down to kiss my ear. Her breath brushed against my skin, and reflexively, I flinched. I felt as if Sally had whispered something against my ear, but her words were whisked away by the wind. She got off me and gave me a subdued smile. There was a mature look in her eyes. Something told me that she wasn't seeing me, but something told me that she wasn't seeing me, but someone that wasn't here. Oh.
喜びを歌いなさい。鎖が解き放たれる時は間もなくです。力をためて待つのです。エンフォーサーよ。
Oh, that does remind me. When we did Rami's bad end, we really didn't run into Enforcer that much. Did we even run into him at all? I don't really recall. Obviously, he didn't have very many scenes if I can't remember anything. Chapter 11, Heiliger. Switzerland, Lugano, July 27, 2020, 1802 Thursday, hostel. After we settled down in a room for 8 in the hostel, I officially introduced everyone to Crystal.
ということでいろいろあって一旦保護しました。かわいい。ねえ、このお洋服どこの？
Yeah, it's so weird. I guess we didn't play long enough for Enforcer to make an appearance.
いや、ということでじゃないだろう。ちゃんと説明しろ。
Sighing at Hamiel's retort, I told them about the text from Bishop that gave me a way into the castle in exchange for taking Crystal under my wing.
それで地下通路なんて知っていたのか。しかし、ビショップか。ミラノで脱出路を送ってきたところといい、妙な協力者だな。
もしかして僕たちと同じようにあの人たちから逃げていたりする人でしょうか。
もしくは連中の中に裏切り者がいて崩壊を望んでいるかだな。
そいつは分からんが、つまりそのビショップってやつにこいつを引き渡せばいいんだな。
と思ったんですが、実はこんな連絡をもらって。
I showed everyone the text I just received. The only thing written was, protect Crystal to the end.
子連れで逃亡か？さすがに厳しくねえか？下手すりゃ誘拐犯に見える。
いや、すでになっているようだ。見ろ、誘拐事件の犯人として我々が報じられている。
Gibb showed us his phone screen, which had an article with our photo. It wrote that we'd seized a young child for ransom money. There was no photo of Crystal, however. They must have had a reason for not revealing her to the public. The article only specified that she was a girl.
わお、サリーたち SNS です。
Yeah, I remember this stuff. .802. And we will wander around. It's only an hour, so maybe we can pass the time by exploring the shopping district. Even if the two of us didn't look like siblings, we wouldn't draw attention as fugitives. After all, the public was after a group of 7 kidnappers. As we sauntered down the street, I overheard a familiar voice from one of the shops.
もうちょっと負けてよ。これも一緒に買うから。
Sally was in the middle of an ardent haggling session. She was in a shop for sewing supplies, surrounded by yards of fabric and colorful thread spools.
それ以上はダメだよ。十分安くしただろう。
そうだけど、お願い。サリー可愛いでしょ？もっと可愛くなりたいの。
If I left her be, I had the feeling that she'd end up standing out more than necessary. After I shared a look with Crystal, I went up to Sally.
サリー？あ、お姉ちゃん。それにクリステルも。
When I called out to her, she whipped her head around before grabbing both of our arms and pulling us into her embrace. Crystal's jaw dropped in shock, but Sally paid no mind as she dragged us into her efforts to bargain with the shopkeeper.
こんな可愛い子たちのお洋服も直すんだよ。あとちょっと、せめて3ユーロ。
わかったわかった。私の負けだよ。3ユーロな。これ以上は絶対に負けないよ。
はーい、おじさんありがとう。
Sally gleefully paid for her products. Next to her, Crystal admired the rows of fabric inquisitively. She gently touched one before letting go. Then she hesitantly brushed the bolts of fabric with her fingertips in the order they were displayed. It must have been her first time coming to a fabric shop. She continued to observe the interior with burning interest in her eyes.
それ気になるの？
After she'd settled her payment, Sally came over and picked up the fabric Crystal had been looking at. For a split second, Crystal's expression stiffened, but she nodded shyly in the end.
じゃあ当ててみる？
The younger girl looked bewildered. Sally unfolded the textile and wrapped it around Crystal's body from behind.
ほらこの色も似合う。
Crystal squinted. She caressed the fabric with her fingertips before turning around to look at Sally. Crystal's lips moved as if to say, "Is it okay for me to wear colorful clothes?" I mean that's kind of a lot to say. There was no voice, but the loneliness and wonder on her face was more profound than words.
もちろん誰だって好きなお洋服着ていいんだよ。
The younger girl stared at the fabric like she had just heard something unbelievable. I didn't have to ask her to know that she hadn't been granted permission to dress freely in the past. They robbed her of even that much. Even the slightly airheaded Sally understood what Crystal's reaction meant. Sally's eyes grew dark for a moment before she collected herself and smiled.
じゃあクリステルの気に入るお洋服作ってあげる。
Yeah, it is funny that everybody in their organization is like their clothes haven't left the Elizabethan era. Elizabethan era. Yeah. Crystal spun around in disbelief. Seeing the spirited look in her eyes, Sally and I both nodded.
もちろん。私も手伝うよ。本当？じゃあ凝ったお洋服にしちゃおう。どんなデザインにしよっかな。
Buzzing with excitement, Sally held up all kinds of fabric against Crystal's frame.
クリステルだったら明るい色も似合いそうだね。
Many of the clothes Sally chose were pastel colors. Crystal looked intrigued by the fabrics that Sally set aside one by one.
気に入ったのがあったら教えてね。
She probably just likes the same green dress. Yeah. She's never had choice She's never had choice up until now. But in the middle of our tour of textiles, Crystal suddenly flinched, losing her smile and taking a step back. She shook her head and looked on the verge of tears. Then she ran out of the shop as if someone were chasing her.
クリステル？あ、待ってよ。おじさんごめん、片付けといて。
ちょっとお嬢ちゃんたち。ああ、もう仕方ないね。
クリステル。
The moment I grasped her hand, her feelings rushed into me.
何を言っているのです。お前はハイリガーですよ。それにふさわしい服装でいるべきなのです。衣服や立ち居振る舞いが人を、立場を作るのですから。
It had been Chancellor speaking. That man had imposed such a burden on Crystal. Holding back tears, Crystal shook out of my touch. She clutched her hand against her chest and hung her head to keep me away. She rejected me. She looked up at me with imploring eyes. She didn't want me to look without permission. She looked lost and hurt as she wept, but I could have sworn I heard her whisper for help.
クリステル。
So that I wouldn't frighten her off, I spread out my arms to show her that I wanted to hug her, not touch her hand. There wasn't even a moment of hesitation. Crystal threw her arms around me before sobbing quietly without a word.
もうサリーのこと置いてかないでよ。ってクリステル？
Yeah, I imagine Chancellor doesn't really have a concept of, like, wearing something fun. Seeing the child sobbing, Sally froze for a second. Then she gently placed a hand on Crystal's head.
大丈夫だよ。いつだって作れるから。ね。今じゃなくても大丈夫だから。いい子、いい子。
Smiling warmly, Sally stroked Crystal's head. Crystal steadily calmed down with the help of Sally's reassuring touch. Once Crystal stopped crying, Sally grinned with delight.
よかった。じゃあドミトリーに戻って髪結んで遊ばない？髪？そう、別にお洋服作らなくても女の子はいっぱいおしゃれができるんだよ。
Switzerland, Lugano, July 28th, 2028, 10:59, Friday, hostel. And so the three of us returned to the hostel. Sally began fiddling with Crystal's hair practically as soon as we stepped through the door. She braided Crystal's hair, tied it up into twin bunches, and even tried a ponytail hairstyle. As Crystal's hairstyle changed from one to another, her eyes burned brighter with joy. Seeing that, Sally got a bit carried away.
ここ編み込みしたら可愛いよね。あ、それで買ってきたばっかのリボンを毛先につけて。よし、クリステルはこんな感じかな。
Sally nodded with satisfaction as she admired her handiwork. A question popped into my head.
ところで、サリーは髪型を変えたりしないの？え？ああ、うん。今のこの髪型じゃないとサリーじゃないからね。それとも変えた方がいいと思う？
I like you as you are now, is that right? Yeah.
サリーは今のままがいいかな。その髪型とても似合ってるもの。本当？サリーもこの髪型が一番サリーっぽいかなって思ってるんだよね。子供の頃からずっとこれだったしね。そうなんだ。変えようと思ったことはないの？
Since Sally was somewhat of a fashionista, I figured she must have tried out all kinds of hairstyles, so this came as a small surprise.
うん、ないよ。だって髪型が変わったらサリーじゃなくなっちゃうから。
It sounded like Sally had a strong emotional attachment toward her current style.
この髪型でいればサリーはサリーでいられるから。だからこのままでいいんだ。
Oh, okay. This is kind of a hint towards her secret. She said that with a smile, but somehow I sensed a hint of mystery in her. Okay, Mika knows it too. I wonder, maybe she actually wants to try a different hairstyle, but she's afraid.
サリーの髪型についてはまた今度考えるとして。あ、アッシュ君、頭貸して。
あ、何言って。
Sally's hyper attitude came back like a rubber band had snapped. She dragged in Ash, who'd been lounging since coming back. Then she even involved Gib. A few hours later, seeing Ash and Gib with cute hairstyles crafted by none other than Sally herself, Crystal burst into quiet laughter. Though I still didn't hear her voice, Sally and I breathed sighs of relief seeing Crystal smile. Switzerland, Lugano, July 28th, 2028, 22:03, Friday, hostel. Yeah, they didn't want to draw Ash and Gabe with cute hair. Once Crystal, exhausted from a day of playing, fell asleep, we launched into a second investigation on her. If she was kidnapped by Chancellor, why had he tried to make me read her mind? What was Crown's goal? Crystal's identity could be the key.
手がかりもなんもないよな。住んでたところもどこかわかんないみたいだし。
以前レベッカさんと一緒に調べた時、行方不明事件の被害者の中には見当たりませんでした。と言っても急いでたので見逃した可能性はありますが。
行方不明者のデータベースで照合した方が良さそうだな。サリー、クリステルらしい人物がいないか調べられるか。
できるかも。待ってね。
Gabe pulled up the list of missing people that the police published. Sally snapped a photo of Crystal and began typing away. After a tap on the enter key, photos of all kinds of people flashed before disappearing. She'd run a program on her laptop to compare photos for a match. This was a more accurate and swift method compared to what I'd done with Rebecca. I wonder how Rebecca's doing now. Her social media was suspended. Oh, okay. This seems familiar. It's like I just remember reading all this. 2141. That's right. We got a brief appearance from our scalpel lady, who really hasn't been in the game that much.
俺は
Oh, then I got tased. And here we're going to say there's no time for a plan.
作戦を考えても無駄です。
Though it was difficult to admit, no plan was the best plan. Overthinking was wasting valuable seconds.
そうですか？でもしかし。
もちろん、もっと時間があるのなら成功率の高い作戦を作れるかもしれません。
だが今はそんな時間はないな。
そうだね。中途半端な作戦なら逆にない方がいいかも。はい。それに今回の目的は王冠を手に入れ無事に逃げること。証拠や目撃情報が残ることは無視します。
白昼堂々と正体も隠さずに盗むということか。
そうなります。皆さんの罪状が増えてしまいますが。
今さらそんなことを気にするやつがここにいるか？
Amiel swept away my anxiety with a sardonic smirk.
お姉ちゃんがサリーたちを指揮してくれるんでしょ？だったら作戦なんてなくても大丈夫だよ。
Oh, well, it would normally be Grand Larceny time, but we're going to skip the minigame since we've already done it.
任せて。
That was the only thing I could do. Protecting everyone from danger was my job.
やれやれ。大胆なことを言ってくれるじゃないか。
なるほどな。確かにこの状況では臨機応変に対応した方がいいだろうが、君の負担は相当なものだぞ。本当に任せて大丈夫か？
はい。皆さんのことを信じてますから大丈夫です。
なら決まりだな。
はい、急ぎですし、それしかなさそうですね。
サリーはお姉ちゃんを信じるよ。
ああ、派手にやってやろうぜ。
Everyone gave me a dependable smile. We were going to do everything we could to rescue Crystal. Thus began our mission to steal the Corona d'Argento. Alright, we can skip mission mode, thankfully. August 1st, Italy, Venice, 2028, 12:46 Tuesday, Venezia, Santa Lucia. When we arrived at Santa Lucia Station in Venice, there was already someone there to receive us.
お待ちしておりました。犯罪者ご一。
Okay, we got through this part too. Let's see, I can't abandon Crystal.
でもクリステルを見捨てられ
This will be interesting because I guess Sally's gonna bust in here. I had to save Crystal, but how? Agents in black swarmed in from both sides. My legs trembled, threatening to buckle beneath me. It was then that I heard a voice from my phone.
お姉ちゃん
It was Sally. I whipped out my phone to find that I was in a call with her.
サリーどうして電話がつながってるの時間がないから勝手につなげた列車が揺れるから捕まってえわかった
Mind reeling, I grabbed a nearby handrail. Right after, the train shook violently. I don't know what Sally was going to do. The wheel shrieked as the train came to a sudden stop. All the agents who'd come for me toppled into one another like dominoes. Not the pizza.
待て、動くな、絡まって。
お姉ちゃんその車両のドアを開けるから急いで列車から降りて
Hold on a minute. As she said so, the train door in front of me opened. Sally was sitting on the motorbike outside, a little ways away from the train. Her eyes were glued to her phone. She probably used it to open the door remotely. I leapt off the train before the men could chase me again. Oh, not quite as exciting as as Rami's breaking through the window. I ran to her as fast as I could, but then a scream rose up behind me. It was Crystal's voice. I turned around to see Chancellor grabbing the little girl by her arm in the dining car. I couldn't leave just yet. I needed to save that poor girl. My body made a U-turn before I could think twice. Yet the moment I got back to the train, the door shut in my face. No way. Sally scowled at me from afar, holding her phone in one hand. She must have closed it.
Sally, お願い。さっきやったみたいに扉を開けて。ダメだよ。なんで？できるわけないじゃん。いいから早く乗ってよ。でもクリステルが言うこと聞いてよ。
Being unusually rough, she snatched my arm and forced me to sit in the sidecar.
お願い待って、サリー。
Before I could even fasten my seatbelt, Sally had started the engine and peeled out. Oh no. Crystal was still on board, but the train was getting farther and farther away. I could see the little girl through the window, on the verge of tears. Sally clenched her teeth as she steered the bike. She looked unusually grim, like she was trying not to cry. The bike sped down the road as soon as the train was completely out of sight. The whipping winds were so cold, they nearly cut my cheeks. Meanwhile, Sally was so focused on the road that she didn't say a single word. Her driving was rough and reckless. She wasn't being her usual self. Oh, hold on a minute. A heavy silence filled the air between us as the pink-haired girl kept her lips pressed tight. Switzerland Mountain, August 1st, 2028, 1826, Tuesday, Riverbank. When we finally reached an empty clearing far away from the train, Sally stopped the bike and whirled on me.
どうしてさっきあんなことしたの？さっきってサリーがせっかく助けに来たのに、なんで列車に戻っちゃうような真似したの？それはだってお姉ちゃんがまた捕まっちゃったら意味ないじゃん。信じらんない。なんでそんなことも考えらんないの？お姉ちゃんのバカ。サリーはこんなに心配して一生懸命来たのに。だってクリステルがまだ残ってたんだもの。
I lashed out at her without meaning to. I clapped a hand over my mouth as Sally glared at me.
知らないよ。サリーはお姉ちゃんを助けに来ただけだもん。クリステルなんて知らない。そんな、じゃあクリステルはどうでもいいってことなの？じゃあお姉ちゃんはサリーのことなんてどうでもいいの？あのままじゃお姉ちゃんもサリーも捕まってたんだよ。
You're both important to me.
サリーもクリステルも大切だよ。どっちも守りたいに決まってるじゃない。だから だからクリステルを助けようとしたの？それってサリーはどうでもいいってことじゃない？違うって言ってるじゃない。サリーもクリステルも大切だから。
Well, Sally and Crystal meant a lot to me. If they were in trouble, I'd come flying to their rescue.
それでもどっちか選ばなきゃならない時があるよ。その時お姉ちゃんはクリステルを選ぶんでしょ？
Oh, that's not really fair, Sally.
現状を記録するぞ。
これでいいのか？
I mean, Sally can take care of herself. Crystal can't. Alright, well, once again, we ended on a cliffhanger. Yeah, we'll stop it right there. This is meowmurai. You've been watching Despera Drops, running on Nintendo Switch 2. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching. I will see you at the next stream.